Hey guys, welcome back to the DAHKTUBE, and before we get started, don't forget to like, share, comment in the section topics you want me to cover, and subscribe. Now today we'll be doing completing the square, and we're going to do two forms. So we're going to do it in the form where we have a times x plus h all squared plus k, and we're going to be using it to solve quadratic equations. So let's say we have this question here that says write 3x squared plus 10x minus 8 in the form a x plus h all squared plus k. So recall, this is our general equation for a quadratic. So now, if we line it up like this, we know that a is 3, b is 10, and c is minus 8. However, in this question, we don't have any equal 0, so we leave that alone. So for step 1, we group the variables. So we have 3x squared plus 10x in brackets, so that's grouping the variables, and then we have minus 8 on the outside. Step 2 says factor a. Now we know that a is equal to 3. So that means we're going to have 3 on the outside of the bracket. Put the bracket here. Because we are factoring 3 from 3x squared, we have x squared left. If we are factoring 3 from the 10x, that's basically saying that we have 10x over 3. Because if you multiply this bracket out using distributive law, you'll get back this what you started with. Then you have minus 8 on the outside. Now step 3 says add the square of half of b inside the bracket. Now if you find half of b is in this case is 10 over 3. So half of 10 over 3 is 5 over 3. So we're adding the square of 5 over 3 inside the bracket. So we have 3x squared plus 10x over 3 plus 5 over 3 all squared. And remember, we have the minus 8 on the outside. Step 4 says subtract a times half of b squared outside the bracket. So remember, a was 3, and we're multiplying 3 by half of b squared. b squared was 5 over 3. So this was from step 3. So now we're going to include step 4, and we had minus 8. So now we're subtracting a, which is 3, times half of b, which is 5 over 3, squared, and that's what we have. So now step 5 says simplify the perfect square inside the bracket, meaning inside here, and simplify the constants outside the brackets, meaning here. So the perfect square inside here is written by saying, so we have the 3 outside, so it is this term here, x, the sign that is in front of the b, which is a plus sign, and the term at the end, so it's both the squares. So the squares here and this one here. Then you have 5 over 3 all squared. Now if you were supposed to expand this entire bracket here, you get back everything inside this bracket. Then we simplify this on the outside. So that's minus 8 minus 3 times 5 over 3 all squared. So that's minus 8 minus 25 over 3. You'd get minus 16 and a third. So now if you look carefully, you realize that it is indeed in the form ax plus h squared plus k. So that means h is equal to 5 over 3 and k is equal to minus 16 and a third. Okay, so now we're going to try and solve quadratics using completing the squares. So a quadratic equation is when you have a quadratic equal to 0. So for example, we have x squared minus 10x plus 16 is equal to 0. That means a is equal to 1 here, b is minus 10, and c is 16. So for step 1, if a is not equal to 1, meaning the coefficient here for x squared is not 1, then you divide the entire quadratic by a. So because in this case, a is equal to 1, then we can just move on to step 2. So step 2 says, bring c to the right side of the equation. So c is 16, so when you carry to the right hand side, it becomes negative 16. So you have x squared minus 10x is equal to minus 16. So now step 3 says, find half of b and square it, then add it to both sides. So half of b, so half of 10 is 5. And we square 5, that's 25. So we're saying x squared minus 10x plus 10 over 2, which is 5, all squared is equal to minus 16 plus 10 over 2 all squared. So we could simplify it by writing this here. So just so you can follow what I'm saying, so for step 4, factor the left side of the equation into a perfect square. So now you do that by focusing on the square terms. So you have x, whatever sign is in front of the b term, here which is minus in this case. You put that sign, you put the other square term, which is 5, and you put a square on the outside of the bracket like that. So if you were supposed to expand this bracket, you get back this right here. So now I can actually write the 25 here. Is equal to minus 16 plus 25, which is 9. So now step 5 says square root both sides and solve for x. So we square root both sides to get rid of the square on the left side. And anything you do to one side, you do to the other side. So now we have x minus 5 is equal to, whenever you find the square root of a number, you always get the plus and the minus of that number. And the square root of 9 is 3. However, bear in mind, you cannot find the square root of a negative number. So what we do now, we split it. So we have x minus 5 is equal to positive 3, or x minus 5 is equal to negative 3. That means x is equal to positive 8, or x is equal to 2. So I hope you wrote down all your steps so that it is easier for you to follow. Now we're going to try an example when the coefficient of x squared, which is a, is not equal to 1. What you do first is you carry over c, so we have 3x squared minus 8x is equal to minus 5. Then we divide throughout by a, so dividing throughout by 3. So we have x squared minus 8x over 3 is equal to minus 5 over 3. Then we find half of the b term. In this case, it is 8 over 3. Half of that is 4 over 3. And we're adding the squared of that on both sides. So we have x squared minus 8x over 3 plus 4 over 3 squared is equal to minus 5 over 3 plus 4 over 3 squared. So now remember, we focus on the squared terms. So we have x, we focus on the sign in front of the b, which is minus 4 over 3, and we have that all squared. So now we can say that this is 16 over 9, and this is 16 over 9. And that is equal to minus 5 over 3 plus 16 over 9. You're going to get 1 over 9. And now we square root both sides. So we have x minus 4 over 3 is equal to plus or minus 1/3. So now we split it, so we have x minus 4 over 3 is equal to 1/3, or x minus 4 over 3 is equal to negative 1/3. So we have x is equal to 5 over 3, or x is equal to 1. And that's how you solve quadratic equations using completing the square, or you put it in the form a, open bracket, x plus h all squared plus k. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time on the Dark Tube.